Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Exploring West Africa webinar. Today, we have with us Zercom, our international consultants in Africa. So we have with us Cephas, Richard, Zerba, and Geth, who will go ahead and talk about the West African market. And then after, we will go ahead and hear from Lori Daughtery and Betsy Riggs regarding an upcoming event that we have going on in West Africa. And then after that, we will then take some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions or anything, you're welcome to pop them into the chat and we can discuss that during the last 10 minutes with the Q&A portion. This this webinar is being recorded. So after this has concluded, I will go ahead and upload the recording of the webinar to our website, as well as email everyone with more information about food and beverage West Africa, as well as this webinar link and the link to the in-country consultants that you guys can do. You guys can register through SUSTA. So you can go ahead and have Zercom take over. Mr. Richard
Great.
Zerba.
Well, hi, and thank you. I'm just going to move over to sharing right now so we can get our presentation um, on the road here. So, everybody, can you see my screen? And we're off.
Yes.
Okay, um, so great. I'd really like to quickly introduce Cephas and Get. Cephas is in the lovely country of Ghana, and Get is in Cote d'Ivoire. These are two of the fastest growing country markets in the world. And maybe if I could just have maybe Cephas introduce himself first and Get after that, then we can just quickly start the presentation. Cephas?
Okay, thank you, Richard. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cephas Nikwe Kote. I am based in Accra, Ghana. I've been working with Sercom for the past 6 years, and we have served U.S. um, exporters in Africa, across Africa. As Richard indicated earlier, I am based in Accra, which is in the West African region. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you. And Get?
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Get Lega. I'm actually based in Abidjan, so the economic capital of Cote d'Ivoire. And as Richard said as well, one of the fastest growing economy in the world, particularly in the West Africa. I've been working with Circle for the past 5 years and working in different sector industries, always following companies to invest in the market. I will be able to share my insights here.
Great. So the way we're going to run our presentation is to do it a bit conversationally in terms of the three of us, and then we're going to allow our IMEX friends to present, and then we will have some time for questions and answers later on. And we're really excited about the opportunity for us to move ahead with things in West Africa. Now, just so you know, SUSTA's coverage with us is very broad, right across all of Africa. We have staff in 18 countries of Africa, and very good actual teams under both Cephas and Get that work regionally across both the English speaking and the French speaking parts of West Africa. We also have Coyote based out of Lagos, Nigeria, which is kind of a different sort of a standalone market, but a very important market in West Africa as well. So West Africa has very good coverage. It's a market of over 400 million people altogether. and a very important one because it's growing very quickly. So let's just quickly go through some of the overall views of where American food and beverages are going into Africa. We can see that the value of agricultural imports generally into sub-Saharan Africa. This does not include North Africa, although we also work in North Africa. The values of agricultural goods being imported are effectively doubling from the middle of the 2010s to 2030. And so this is an important thing to understand, and there's some reasons behind this that we're also going to discuss. And although this chart here ends in 2021, the trend has been upward once more, and we're going to be seeing some really good American agricultural export figures coming into Africa that are a result of some policy shifts that have happened, and also a lower US dollar, because against a lot of the African countries right now, the US dollar is between 10 and even 15 or 20% lower than it was 18 months ago. And this is something that American suppliers can take advantage of. So this is just a quick look at where we're talking about in terms of the countries that we're going to be covering. There is a lot to say on this presentation, but it's important to understand that we do have a very fast-growing middle class. Sub-Saharan Africa is growing at the second fastest growth level in the world for middle class, and West Africa is no exception. And so maybe if I could just have each of the gentlemen to make a comment about the growth of the middle class in their own countries and some of their own observations. Get, why don't we start with you and then Cephas?
Yeah, sure. So, particularly in Cote d'Ivoire and all the Francophone West African country, you can see that more and more people are going to study abroad. So, going to study in the US, in the UK, although it was France previously. So all these people that came back after the study have been part of this middle class, and actually it's growing and growing. Also, there's a lot of new companies and the development, the economic development of the past recent years are making people getting more and more income in the country. And this contributes to people being more open to new products and growing the middle class in the region.
Cephas.
Okay, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Geth. Yes, as Geth indicated, we are seeing a growth in educational exposure within West Africa, pretty much across the continent. And so that is helping people move into the middle class bracket. People are also getting exposed to global opportunities. And as a result of that, we are seeing an urban sprawl. Urbanization is increasing across major cities and urban centers in Africa and West Africa for that matter. The key thing is, as people move into the middle class bracket, you would definitely realize that they would have disposable income to spend on their unique taste and preferences. And the food processing industry is not very, very mature. Let me put it that way. And so what they churn out is insufficient to satisfy demand. And so that makes it an advantage for you as exporters to push their products into the market. So this is what I'll say briefly about the middle class bracket growth.
Thanks very much, Cephas. So just very quickly, you can see here by this one bar chart on the right that most of the fastest growing markets in the world, mentioned in blue here, are in Africa. And so we can see that some of the fastest growing markets in the world are in Africa. In fact, if you look at the top 20, 15 of them are in Africa. And that goes to mention also Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire which are fast-growing markets. And so there is a lot of potential as we're seeing the growth there in terms of each of those individual countries. And then you can see how the West African countries fare in terms of the size of economies relative to the rest of Africa. And we've got the top 10 there. So Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire all range on that top 10 list. And if you're looking at ease of doing business between those three, you're looking at some big differences because Nigeria has a population of 230 million people or more now. And Ghana, what's the population of Ghana, Cephas?
A little over 34 million.
That's right. So a population of maybe 1/8 of what Nigeria has, and yet it's got 1/3 of the size of the economy. So that means that the standard of living, the quality of life, the way business is done a lot differently in Ghana than Nigeria. And so as you're coming into markets, for example, making sure you're picking the right market with the right kind of buyers is important because although West Africa does seem like a region, and it is a region of the world's economy, and it is tied together economically, there are big differences in where you might want to choose which country you want to look at. So here's just a quick regional growth selection. This is being revised. We're looking at about 4.5% for Africa overall in 2026. And these are the most recent years. And you can see that West Africa has consistently been growing very well. And most of the countries, as we indicated on the chart, that are doing well are also ones where we have key representation in. And then just here's another chart which indicates some of the growth relative to other growing areas of Africa. And we can see with West Africa and East Africa that they're coming from a very young base, a very fast-growing middle class. If you look at Southern Africa with much lower growth, there's a much older population and a much more internally sophisticated economy. So when opportunity arises, they don't typically grow as fast. But the West Africa figures are also tied to austerity, which is being part of the Nigerian experience for the last couple of years. And so Nigeria has only grown at between 1% and 2% altogether, dragging the general statistic down. So while you have a lot of countries that are growing at 6 or 7%, the average is being pulled down by Nigeria because it is such a large economy relative to everything else. So if we look at the size of West Africa, you're going to understand why we have staff in so many countries. West Africa alone, this region of Africa is as big geographically as the continental United States. So we have to understand that there's a lot of diversity in the countries, and in fact, you can even find this with the way people project their own national dishes. And it's interesting to talk about when a Nigerian and a Ghanaian get together, they often talk about their favorite foods. And maybe Cephas, if you could just tell me something about the internal relationships between Ghana and Nigeria, because it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it is. It's like two siblings who are always at their neck. Nigeria calls itself the bigger sibling, the giant of Africa, and they would often want to bully Ghana in arguments and generally in conversations. But Nigeria and Ghana have very good relations. I would term it brother relations. Although Cameroon is very close to Nigeria, if you ask many Nigerians which country would you readily relocate to if you have to leave Nigeria, they will tell you, I want to go to Ghana. So there's a very good relationship between Ghana and Nigeria, and some level of rivalry as well in every sphere of life. Sports,
Mhm.
food, even culture. And Nigerians like to
Mhm.
tease Ghanaians a lot, and Ghanaians also do not want to feel small. So we try to answer them anytime they push the conversation towards. So the relationship between Ghana and Nigeria is healthy on all fronts, yeah,
Yeah.
and competitive to some extent.
Thanks, Cephas. And do you want to comment on the maybe the internal rivalry or the relationship between Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, the two larger Francophone economies?
Yeah, sure. As you said, because we are the two larger, is the same fact as for Ghana and Nigeria. We always want to show that even if both of us are actually on the top of this francophone market, we are the best. So each time when it comes to food, same in sports, we always want to show this rivalry, but it's also a friendly rivalry. Same things when it comes to tourism as well, because it's another aspect where these two countries are really fighting this region because we want really to attract people more to discover because we kind of have the same geographic landscape. So yeah, always balancing but friendly and in the same goal to go together.
Yeah. And where I live in Durban, just to give you an extent of the geography we're talking about, I live in Durban, South Africa, and it is farther for me to go to get to Dakar, Senegal, if I was to go in a straight line, than it is to go to Norfolk, Virginia from Dakar. So this gives you an idea that there's parts of the East Coast of the United States that are closer to parts of Africa than we are in other parts of Africa. So this just gives you an idea that Africa is not some little island in the middle of the Atlantic that stops you from sending a ship from your ports over to Singapore, for example. It is not that. It is a big market. And very quickly, it is an integrated market. There has been some issues with the Sahel countries pulling out of the ECOWAS program, but ECOWAS has functioned as one of the first trade organizations in actually in Africa and in the world in terms of its growth. Maybe you can just quickly tell me and tell the audience how important this grouping is.
Yeah, so the ECOWAS is kind of the motor of this region when it comes to economics. And we are sharing the same currency. So it is the transaction and the economic aspect within the region. Um, in the past years, it has been really useful to do business around the region. But as Richard said, the previous year has been marked by the Sahel Association with Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso that actually came out of this. But still, it's actually working really well, and the negotiations are still in place to see how the Sahel states could be also join the region to do business.
Right. It's interesting to note that if you're following international news, there's a lot of movement relating to Generation Z, um, re, changes in government, revolutionary things that are happening. This is not just happening in the Sahel. These countries have come out of a French colonial tie which has been very strong, and they've wanted to move ahead with things. And most of what has been happening in these countries has been youth driven, which is very interesting. We can also tie Gabon into this because they also had a change of government where leaders who were very establishment, very elitist, were changed over. Now, this is not only an African thing. Although countries like Madagascar, we've seen this. In Tanzania, we've seen this. We've seen it across Africa, but it's also been places like Indonesia. We've seen issues right across the world in terms of the kinds of protests that have been happening, not least in Iran today. It's the Generation Z, which has definitely a different set of values, wants to be part of what's happening in the world, is not too happy with the old establishment, which does business with the old way of elites connecting with elites. And so this is something that is very interesting and very part of what is going on in the world right now. And I could list another dozen places where this is going on, and we're seeing things alter, generally for the better, because these young people are more concerned about fairness and democracy, merit-driven values. And so, although you can see that the some of the smaller economies have moved away from this, it is partly because of the value differences between the older generations and the younger ones. So just very quickly, we are moving toward not just a set of regional groupings in Africa, but into one common market. In 2021, the African Continental Free Trade Area was founded, and almost all of the countries have ratified it through their parliaments now, and the protocols are being developed. So as you're starting to develop an interest in Africa, please keep your finger on the button of the African Continental Free Trade Area, because Africa is forming into a grouping very similar to what the European Economic Commission was. Not exactly like the European Union. They've seen that they don't want a lot of the political issues that are going on in the EU right now, but they want very close economic ties. So it's forming into a common market. It has formed into a common market, and the protocols are being negotiated and developed so that as you understand how to get into one African country, you'll be understanding how to get into many African countries because of the similar things with, particularly with food, with phytosanitary and regulatory environment issues. So this is something that is very important as the years go by. It didn't take Europe overnight to get to where they are, and it won't take Africa overnight, but it is something that is developing and something that you need to be part of. So let's just very quickly, I love this slide. Right now, Africa's got almost 1.6 billion people inside the African Continental Free Trade Area. So this is an important aspect of understanding the market. And where we are right now, we have about 20% of the world's population. By the end of this century, if all the trends continue as they are, Africa will have over 40% of the world's total population. And that's an interesting aspect to understand. And so we have a very young youth dynamic. The average age in Africa is 19.5. So if you look at Germany, for example, the average age in Germany is 46. So there's a lot of opportunity to understand that. And in West Africa, we have very young populations. Nigeria's got an average age of about 17. Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, what's the average age in your countries there?
In Cote d'Ivoire, actually, it's 20.
20, yeah.
And in Ghana, it's 21.
Okay, so those are the but 20 and 21 average age. Big, relatively large families still, even among young middle class people, but 20 and 21, that's also getting on the older side of some of the African statistics. So it's a very young continent, and you have to really understand that as we're looking at the middle class and who is driving the middle class there. You can see the demographics in China and Europe if you understand how these pyramid things are. The fact is that you need people at the bottom to support the people at the top, and China and Europe are developing into very old societies right now. Some of the statisticians are saying that China will be the first place to get older before it gets wealthier. So just to understand that similarly sized markets in terms of population have a very different dynamic. And if you can look at it from this perspective, the story of the demographics is told in the map that we see here. So the high growth is happening where the map is red, and that is predominantly Africa. And the diminishing or negative growth is happening where the green portions of the world are. And so we can see that Africa is a standout region in terms of the the demographic shift, which is happening globally. Nigeria will be one of the most populous countries, all things considered, all trends considered. Um, it will go to almost 800 million people by the end of this century. So if we're looking at the trends, yes, you can say, well, that's still more than 70 years away. But even the next decade, particularly the decade after that, are still inside the generational um, uh, trends that you've got to watch for your company. And it's important for you to understand that this really is where the global growth in the number of people that are expanding into the food and beverage market is happening. This is really, really important to understand strategically for companies. And I'm glad that each of you are here representing your company right now because this is where the action is taking place. You can see that 2021 was a pivotal year because it's the year that Africa's population supplanted and well, passed through India and China. And we could actually see that China may be, if we're looking at some indications, the Chinese population might be several notches lower than what the government is actually saying because of the way they revised their censuses in earlier times. And so the actual population of China may not be 1.4 billion right now. In fact, but India's numbers are pretty correct. So we can see that Africa is becoming a very important region, and keep remembering that Africa is one market. So if you're looking at statistics of different countries and things, you've got to understand that there is a functioning move toward um, understanding Africa as one functional common market. The next thing is that's important to understand that by 2050, Africa will be easily the largest contributor to new labor in the world. And by the end of the century, it's going to be producing more new labor, more new people entering the labor force than all of the rest of the world combined. So this is something to understand strategically about Africa. Now, larger populations by themselves don't make any economic sense unless the people are getting wealthier on a per person or per capita basis. And that is certainly happening in Africa as countries are becoming wealthier. Wealth is extending more into the middle class. So we've got a very large movement. And then we can see that the internet economy is growing very fast relative to the general economy. Maybe just a quick comment about online sales, online delivery in both of your countries for food products. How important is the internet in your countries?
Well, let me go first and I'll keep it very brief. E-commerce is growing very big in Ghana. Um, even me, people within my age group or the age bracket would typically place an order for food. So we spoke earlier about the middle class. Most of the people within the middle class brackets often order products online. So e-commerce is huge in our part of the world. And I'll turn it over to Geth because he has expertise in that sector. So Geth, you take
Yeah,
it.
yeah, sure. Thank you, Chef Martin. And I cannot better say that big is the word for e-commerce in the region. In the past 5 years, you can see in Cote d'Ivoire, we have been surprised by the number of company. Actually, we have four big company in the country just for food delivery. So you have Yongo from Yandex in Russia. You have Glovo from the Spain company. You have Jumia. So all of these big company that provide delivery actually in the country, and the main focus is on food. when for sure they have over market like clothes and IT equipment. So this is to highlight how big it is actually in the region.
So we have to understand that the market is becoming very sophisticated. Online ordering, where you've got those young people driving their motorcycles to deliver to young middle class people. That's really where the market is heading, just like the United States. So there are things that are happening across West Africa that are following a lot of the trends. Just quickly, if you can speak English, you can do business across most of Africa. You live in a country that was one of France's key colonial countries. How is English expanding into the French-speaking West Africa?
Yeah, it has been involved the past year. So actually, you can find 1 out of 5 people here that can speak English with you and can do business in English with you. Something that would not be possible like 10 years ago. So this to just to highlight this change, it is not just in Cote d'Ivoire, it's all the Francophone countries, so Mali, Burkina Faso, as well as in Senegal as well, where more young people have been um, in contact with English by TV or even people that went abroad to school.
Thanks very much, Get. And if you can look at how the population, the density of population actually correlates to where English is a national language, that's also important. But it's important to understand too that if we're looking at the different language groups, North Africa, still very predominantly Arabic, still a lot of people that speak French there. But amongst the purple regions, we see that English is very predominant. And this is something that's really important to understand, that the language of English as a second or even a third or sometimes a fourth language is rising, and it's becoming the lingua franca of Africa, meaning lingua franca meaning the common language across the continent for doing business, even to the point where a couple of countries in the French sphere of influence joined the British Commonwealth 2 years ago. So this is interesting because the Commonwealth, you might think, oh, well, the old British Empire, the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth is really focused mostly on being a nexus for doing business. And if you were to go to a Commonwealth conference, you would find a lot of people about 30 years old from around the world, and a lot of them from Africa, um, focused on finding new business with other English-speaking markets. So interestingly enough, Togo and Gabon, two French-speaking countries, joined the Commonwealth just very short years ago. Rwanda joined it 10 years ago and flipped over completely from French to English. So this is something that is a trend. Mozambique went from Portuguese to joining the Commonwealth back in the 90s. Cameroon as well, back in the 1990s. So we can see that there's definitely a move that fortunately for American companies where you're sitting home comfortably, being entertained in English, there's been a big, even a political fracas about changing national languages and all of that. And this is something that is trending very actively, and particularly a topic of youth involvement. So I don't have a lot of time left, but I just want to say that when you come into Africa, understand that the youth are a very different culture than the older people. Maybe quickly, Cephas and Get, who are both part of that youth, maybe you can talk about generally some of the key differences that you would find in working with people that are of your age who are running a company versus somebody who's maybe 60 or 65 years old running an African company in your regions.
Sure. So maybe because I've been working in the entrepreneurship field so far, so most and more you will see that entrepreneurship mindset is have been shift from the francophone aspect to the US mindset. So you have more and more startups ecosystem that have been created in the region with this mentality of growth and also of adding technology to scale up quickly. So this kind of mindset have been spread in the region from Cote d'Ivoire to Mali to Burkina Faso. Something that is still common for new business owner and kind of all business owner is the respect that we have for the elder and the respect that we have for the client. It's same uh, parts of the different period because of the tradition, the faith, and the cultural value that we have in Africa globally.
Yeah, thank you, Geth. I would say that for us here and our experience with young people in terms of work, you'd realize that many young people, because of global exposure, respond to time very well, unlike what you would find in the past. So in Ghana, our time zone is GMT. We're in the same time zone with Cote d'Ivoire. And previously, well, it's still something that people say, but not necessarily among the young people. They call it Ghana Man time. Meanwhile, it's Greenwich Mean Time. The reason they call it Ghana Man time is because people don't respond to time very well, or people didn't used to respond to time very well. So if you have a meeting with them at 9, they'll come for the meeting maybe at 9:30. So sometimes they say 9:30. But amongst the younger population, it is not so. Because they are exposed to global trends, they have a mindset that is ready to do business and a drive towards business. Yeah. So, Richard,
Thanks very much. So the young entrepreneurial class, I would estimate are closer to doing business in ways that Americans would understand than the older people.
Definitely
Yes.
in Cote d'Ivoire and the Francophone region. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. And they have that flexibility. We are all part of that bracket. So there's the flexibility to work with American businesses.
Great, great. Okay, so I'm going to just move on. So you look at the general trend, you look at a relatively large middle class, and you have an ability to reach out globally. You have access to global languages, and you've got a very entrepreneurial culture. If China was in this position back in 1980 when they opened up China, Africa, looking at a similar sort of trajectory, China would have surpassed the United States and doubled the economy within a couple of um, within about a couple of decades, or actually, um, it would be a very different world situation. So keep in mind that there is a young middle class that speaks English, that is globally tied, that is able to get into business. And there's about 300 or 350 million of these young people. That's bigger than the population of the United States altogether, bigger than the population of Europe. This is a trajectory that cannot be ignored in the global thing. So let's just very quickly talk about some of the sectors that we're working with that are very fast growing, consumer and retail. We have a lot of things, and this presentation is going to be available to everybody. So as we look at the statistics, the consumer retail market for U.S. processed foods into sub-Saharan Africa, effectively the processed food market is doubling in the region in the next 5 years. So keep in mind that this is part of the trend that's happening. It's an important trend. It's something that you can be a part of if you're well positioned. The next thing is that the middle class growth is focusing a lot on food processing. The food processing market, as Cephas indicated, is in its growth stages, but they do not have the food ingredients, they do not have the additives that are needed to amplify a lot of the food processing developments that are happening. And we know this for a fact. So food ingredients are a big, big potential for West Africa. Distilled spirits. Cephas, I know that you don't drink a lot, or you don't drink at all.
I don't drink
But
at all.
you don't drink at all. But make a comment about distilled spirits and the status in the youth culture right now in West
Yes.
Africa, if you can.
So Quickly, yeah, because I know we're pressed for time. If you go across the regional block and you move through restaurants, hotels, and pubs, you would realize that the ability to buy spirits, distilled spirits, and some particular brands is a status symbol for many of the young people. People like to drink. Sometimes it is not because they just want to drink their heads off, but it's because they want to buy for their friends to enjoy, to feel good. So that is what happens across the West African sub-region when you move through restaurants, pubs, and hotels. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
So
market is
our
huge.
That's right. So our team has a lot of experience working in the beverages sector, and something that we just want to bring to the attention of our SUSTA friends. The other thing is animal feeds, proteins, and additives. This is a big market, particularly as proteins are in high demand, and it's something that our team has been able to successfully look at right across Africa. This is an important thing. It does cost a lot to bring meat to market if you are using local imports. But imported imports, and that includes the United States, with proteins, particularly with certain additives, if they're mixed in Africa to create the feeds, it creates a very economical way of presenting these things to market. And so this is a big market for us as well. Seafood, something that we can't ignore. West Africa seafood is for some countries about half of the total protein intake, and this is another sector that's really important. So, very quickly, maybe get and Cephas, if you could just provide a couple closing remarks, and then we'll get on to IMAX.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I will go first. So, as we presented for the region, this youth population that is being more in the middle and upper class that have been willing for product, that been willing for new way to consume, are we willing for new way to enjoy themselves. Same, they are well educated and also with a great entrepreneurial mindset. So is the place to be actually in the region, both for speaking English speaking or French speaking industry and businesses.
Thank you, Geth. Yeah, I would say that as we have indicated throughout the presentation, there are opportunities in West Africa for exporters who want to tap into the market. We have a relatively younger generation within the middle income brackets that have disposable income to spend on ready to make and ready to eat meals. There's also, in terms of doing business within the regional bloc and for most part of Africa, you're assured that many people would be able to readily communicate with you in English, and people are familiar with global trends. So we're expecting to see, post this presentation, more interests in doing business in West Africa and the larger African continent. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. And what we're going to do, if you're interested in this presentation, it has country slides for the key countries in the region, and we're looking forward to more. So I'm going to just pass it on to our friends at IMAX Management, and looking forward to that.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Nice presentation. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
To move a few things around here. Sorry. Okay. Again, I'm Betsy Riggs, and we're IMAX. We are the organizers of the USA Pavilion at Food and Beverage West Africa. So here just to talk to you a little bit about that show. And before I do so, just want to introduce our team. Many of you might know Eric Halston and Claire Groh. Eric is our Chief Commercial Officer. Claire is our Chief Operating Officer. They're co-owners of IMAX. And then there's me, Betsy Riggs. I'm Director of Operations for our food and beverage shows. And I'm the main point of contact for all things operation for Food and Beverage West Africa. So I work with our builder of the pavilion, the show organizers, our partners, of course, SUSTA, and Zircom as well. And then also work directly with exhibitors just to make sure you have everything you need, when you're attending the show. And then pictured next to me is Lori, who's here with us today. She's new to IMEX. She's been with us now, though, a couple of months. While I'm the main point of contact with SUSTA, Lori would be main point of contact for all things sales related for everyone else, really. So Food and Beverage West Africa 2026. This takes place at the Landmark Center in Lagos, Nigeria. The show dates this year are June 9th through 11, and then booth setup day is June 8th. Food and Beverage West Africa is the largest trade show in the region that's dedicated to food and beverage. It's now in its seventh year, and IMEX has been there for 3 years now. We really kind of watched the show for a while, and really once we felt strongly that it was an established show in the region, that's kind of when we drove in. And I will say, Sess has been with us every step of the way. So we're really grateful for their partnership and support in helping us to grow the USA presence at this show. This is this year's floor plan. Just so you know, it used to be, I think it started out actually with just 3 halls, then they added this 4th hall, and this year they're adding a 5th hall. So I guess just to show that it's certainly growing. And then you can see here the USA Pavilion just will be this year just to the right of the registration area. So we feel we have a really great, strong presence at this show. I don't know why it's not moving. There we go. Hold on a second. Okay, sorry about that. For the profile this year, they expect over 350 exhibitors, over 6,000 attendees. Visitors include importers, retailers, distributors, wholesalers, and procurement managers. This show, is really a regional show. Obviously, it's in Lagos, but they really work hard to draw from the whole region. And here you can just see where buyers are coming from to attend Food and Beverage West Africa. They work really hard. They have a hosted buyers program. So in addition to just, maybe you get buyers from these countries, but also you get full delegations from most of them. And at the bottom here, I just have kind of a list of the delegations that were there last year that they intend to bring again this year. And we're in touch with those that are bringing the delegations, and we really work hard to make sure that they, come to our pavilion, introduce themselves, meet all of our exhibitors. USDA also will send an invitation out to each of the delegations in advance, letting them know the details of all the exhibitors that we'll have at the show and inviting them to visit the USA Pavilion. In fact, here on the right is pictured a delegation that came to us from Burkina Faso. And then here's just this year's USA Pavilion floor plan. I will say we have more than doubled our space, even just from last year. You can see our pavilion pictured here on the right is in a really great spot. It's kind of like right when you enter from the registration, you look to your left and you cannot miss our pavilion. But again, it's more than double in size this year. And we have moved what's pictured here. We were kind of just left of the registration area, but now we'll be to the right, but still a great spot. And then SUSTA has a great location so that when you turn to the right, really, you're going to see all of the SUSTA companies. And I know they have, I guess, 2 of their booths are filled so far, but have 3 remaining. Some of the benefits of just being in the USA Pavilion would be the prime location, obviously the USA banner and identification. Pre-show assistance, I will say, you're very well supported from the minute you register for this show. I know SUSTA is very available to answer questions, as is Zircom and IMEX. So a lot of pre-show assistance, on-site assistance. IMEX will have someone there. USDA is very available during the show, and they have their own space as well in the USA Pavilion. So you'll have their support and participation. There's a show directory, but also we have our own USA Pavilion directory where we have those printed and kind of provided to people as they stop by the pavilion so they know all of the exhibitors that are there, including contact information that they can take with them. And this is also something that USDA will kind of blast out to all of their contacts ahead of the show. And then new this year, we are working with USDA to do a market briefing and a retail tour, which will take place the morning of setup day, June 8th. And then the organizers of this show provide a lot of logistical assistance. We understand that for a lot of people, this might be a lot of Americans, it might be your first time going to Nigeria, maybe even your first time going to Africa. So there's a lot of hands-on assistance to make sure that you're able to apply for and get your visa. They offer customs and immigration assistance where for a small fee, someone will literally meet you as you're getting off the plane, kind of walk you through the immigration process. If you're bringing, maybe some people bring product in their suitcase, they'll kind of make sure that you kind of, get through that process as best you can. There's an opportunity to hire a driver to take you to and from the show each day. They offer hotel recommendations. They'll help you get the local currency. So I guess all of this to say you'll have a lot of on-site local contacts, a lot of people, there to help you and answer any questions you might have. And then here on the right is just a picture of our group from last year. You can see Cephas was with us. And they offer a reception one night, which was just a nice way to kind of get out of the venue and have some casual conversation after the show. And that's all I have. I know we're going to have a question and answer period, so please feel free to, ask any questions you might have, and I'll turn it over to Macy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Zircom and IMEX. We greatly appreciate it. This is now the time. If you guys have any questions for either Zircom or IMEX, you guys can go ahead and pop it into the chat. But we'll just use this remainder of time for any questions and answers. So. Nobody has any questions. I don't know if there's anything that you guys, either of you want to add or anything before we close out, but kind of give it a second if anybody has a question that they're typing or anything. Okay, may we have your email address for when we want to reach you? Yes, we will provide everyone's email after when I send out the email. Later on, it'll include a recording of this webinar, the presentations presented during, the link to go ahead and schedule in-country consultations online. If you guys want to meet with anyone from Zircom, I will attach the link for that. I will also attach the link for their contact infos as well. So we will send that out to you guys before the end of the day today. Are there any other questions? Nope. Okay, well, if no one has any other questions, we want to thank you so much for joining. Hopefully, you guys will go ahead and look into more about the event. Okay, we have a question. They said, "Hi, my company is Agranet, and we are a US-based wine distribution company. We are going to introduce American wines to Côte d'Ivoire and want to know how Zircom could help."
Great. Well, I'll just give a quick um, introduction through SUSTA. We can assist with, I'm not sure what state you're in, but typically we will assist with any new projects. I think that the first step is often a consultation, which you have an invitation to. And then we can have Get and myself and maybe another colleague to discuss your requirements. Typically, Get, do you want to talk taking about 1 minute, how we manage the process of helping companies to find qualified buyers in Cote d'Ivoire or generally across any other country as well?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. So, thank you. I think this is a good interest because, as we say, spirit in wine are really interested in the market actually. So, firstly, we will assess the need. So, especially what you need from us. But the first point for us is to give you an overview of the market and specific element to export in the country, specific market research on principal consumers. And then when we have this point, we'll connect you now with the right stakeholders that will help you easily export in the country. So we'll do a list, a qualified list of these partners. So it could be supply, it could be retailer. So all of this will you a clear description of and the clear primary contact in the country to work with. So we package all this and send it to you so that you have the all sense of what it is to do business in Cote d'Ivoire. And if you are ready to come to the country, we'll be really happy also to be and support you within the country to meet the different partners.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you guys so much again for joining. Thank you so much to Zircom and thank you so much to IMEX for your great knowledge and help. We have one more. Can I get your Cote d'Ivoire contact for further communication? Yes. We will send out their emails for a good
Yeah,
contact.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, we will be sure to make sure that you guys have everyone that was on this, that was a panelist. We'll make sure that you guys have their emails so you can contact them and get that communication started. So if there are no other questions, thank you again, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.